Welcome again to the TBH Mastermind. My name is Paul Simpson. Today we've got a special guest in Matt Wheeler. So, without further ado, Matt, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me. So I'm Matt from Made by Studio. We'll define ourselves as like the climate conscious digital agency as of about kind of like 3 to 6 months ago. And then we also run a kind of events company called Green Tech Gathering, which is based in Leeds right now, which is a community of business professionals, companies, all within kind of like the green tech, climate tech space, looking to like collaborate and share knowledge of how to kind of make their businesses more sustainable.
Fantastic. And how did you give us a bit about your background story? How did you end up in that sort of like stream of this digital agency world that there are so many of?
So it started back in college, actually. I always wanted to be a graphic designer. It was always like an interest for me since the age of 14, 15. So when I went to college to start training to be a graphic designer, I was like, oh, how can I turn this into a job? And then when I was 16, I decided to kind of teach myself to code. So I could do like the graphic design, but I could also make things that were interactive. Released an app with my mate um, way back then. It went really well, but then my mate kind of like backed out so as soon as we launched it. So that kind of flopped. We had to back it off. But then from there, I kind of wanted to keep on learning, so I went to university, to Uni of Leeds to do graphic design as well. Spent 4 years there, but I always had this kind of like underlying interest of like how do I build an agency. So I was always kind of like tinkering with different systems and processes of like prepping myself for when university finishes. Created like a false agency, loads of like stock images to make it look like it was me and this huge agency when I was like the age of 18, 19. Um, got a lot of learning from that. People don't really like it when you kind of put fake images and stuff. So like you go to a meeting like, oh, who else is there? It's like, oh, it's just me.
Just me.
Um, so yeah, learned a lot from that and gone through a lot of pivots. But then the big shift was actually in the final year of university where I met my co-founder Sam Taylor on the graphic design degree as well. We got paired up on a project. Um, we both were going to start agencies, but we are kind of very different people. Like I'm very technical, more introverted. He's very extroverted, a great people person, and a really good designer. So we're just like, why don't we just join forces and like do it together? Because I already had like the basics of infrastructure. He already had clients from freelancing, so we merged that, and then 6.5 years later, we are still going. We've gone through a lot of changes. Like we used to be a full service agency, doing
Hmm.
like print design, development. But yeah, last year or over the past 6 months, we sat down and like, what is our purpose? Why are we doing what we do? And the topic of sustainability came up, and we decided to kind of pivot the whole business and our values to be the climate conscious digital agency, focusing on like sustainability, climate tech, green tech is our like specialism because it's an area that we get a lot of value from and we really enjoy that kind of work.
So you actually, is it that you target people who are in that sector, or is it something you take to them so that they can be sort of in that sector and that they can get the sustainability from your agency? How just clarify that for me, please.
So it's a bit of both. So one thing that we specialize in is low carbon websites. So we've spent a lot of time figuring out how can you reduce the data size of a website to make sure it's having the least amount of environmental impact it can. Because because like websites are kind of hosted in the cloud, people don't really kind of see how much of an impact it actually has. But
Hmm.
right now, kind of the IT and communications industry generates more greenhouse gas emissions than um, airlines across the
Wow,
globe. So it's actually a
didn't
big
know that.
problem, and people
Hmm.
don't realize that. So we are kind of providing essentially a green tech service because we're providing a website where the underlying technology and the hosting is green and sustainable by reducing the carbon. But then what we found is people within the kind of like climate tech, green tech space already have that kind of awareness and familiarity of how tech and digital affects the planet. So when we say we can build them a low carbon website, they're more inclined to kind of bring that into their business because it aligns with their business values, it aligns with what they're trying to achieve in their mission. So it's a good kind of collaboration where we are providing green tech, but we also like to work with green tech sustainable brands as well.
That's fantastic. So I work with many agencies myself, and it's a question I ask them. So, what do you stand for? What are you going to stand up, stick your head above the parapet, and say this? And quite a lot of them are scared of it. Scared of saying it.
Yeah.
You know, what do they say? You market to everyone, you market to no one.
Yeah, exactly. And that we were in that position for a good 5 years, I'd say, because we were like, ooh, if we kind of niche and specialize, we're going to cut off so many potential clients. But then we brought in advisors, consultants, and they were just like, you need to find your specialism, you need to find your purpose. And when we've kind of done that and did this whole realignment, we've actually found more people we can work with because our messaging and our values is like exactly aligned to the people we want to work with, rather than this kind of like scattergun approach of like, oh, we might kind of chat to the right person, but you've got like 1 in 1,000 chance, where now we have like a 1 in 10 chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. When you're in business as a small agency, what's the biggest challenge you're facing with growing the agency now?
I'd say it's resource and kind of like planning the resources and the skills within the agency because we're a 5-person team right now. But because we're quite small, but working across a lot of projects, we find ourselves like context switching quite a bit. So we might in the morning work on one project, and in the afternoon work on 2 different ones. And there's like a lot of kind of pressure to make sure that all like the clients and all the projects are delivered to a good standard. Whereas, for example, in a larger agency, you'll have like an A team, B team, C team, and everyone has like their kind of allocated pods that they may work in for those particular clients, where it's a bit easier to plan that resource. Whereas like a small agency tends to be very kind of fluid, very dynamic. So there is a lot of kind of bouncing around things. And one thing we're trying to focus on now, especially for me and Sam, is that we want to work on the agency, figure out how to kind of scale it, grow it in the most sustainable way. But we also find ourselves that because we're small, we still have to work on the client work. We're still working in the agency. So it's trying to figure out how do we kind of take that next step up where we're kind of working on that vision and the strategy and kind of starting to employ people to work on the client projects, and we're essentially managing. So yeah, we're in a bit of a transition period, so it's getting there.
Fantastic. And to be fair, I'm about 6 months from finishing my book, which talks about exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes I call it feed your focus and starve your distractions. And the honest truth is, it only takes probably less than an hour a day for you to progress your own business. Small business, they've got lots to do. They've got to get on with it. They've got to turn up and work. That's part of the deal when they're small. But all I ask them is 1 hour a day. Please, just give me 1 hour a day to work on your business. Nothing else. And it really does. That's that cumulative effect. 1 hour a day, 180 hours a year. Wow. Now it begins to add up. So that's amazing. So you got a business partner. How does that work? Are we aligned? Do we argue? Have we been out in a car park or anything like that?
We actually have a really good kind of business relationship because when we met at university, we're on the same course for years and whatnot. But when we actually became kind of friends was actually on a project. So we've only really known each other by working with each other. And then when we started a business, it's always been kind of like business first, friends second. So we know that every decision we make as individuals as well as kind of business partners is for the benefit of the business. So it's worked out really well. We've only had kind of one time where we had a bit of a disagreement, and that was kind of a bit of a stressful period. But then what came off the back of that is that we need a shareholders agreement. we've put a shareholders agreement in place, but now we both have accountability because we know that's there. Like we can't really, um, one of us can't slack because that agreement's there. We've got to keep pushing it again because that agreement's there. So we have a binding contract, which is like, yeah, it makes sure that we're actually keeping on top of what we need to do as well. So yeah, it works really well.
Great move, great move. The one thing lots of agencies I'm finding talking about at the moment is AI. How's AI landed in your world?
Yeah, so we're using it quite a bit now. Um, like the key areas are reducing admin bottlenecks and kind of streamlining systems.
Mm-hmm.
Because as an agency, we have like our project management, we have Zero for accountancy, we have HR platforms, we have different CRMs, and all of them have their own bit of data sets. And what we started working on, and we started doing this like 3 years ago, to be fair, is integrating every single platform to allow them
Mm-hmm.
to communicate and send the data across each other without us actually doing anything. So
Okay.
it's we like to have a kind of like a single source of truth. So we enter the information on one platform and it goes across all of them rather than us having to enter it across 5 different platforms and there's that kind of room for human error. It eliminates that as well.
Mm.
So we've spent a good amount of time making sure that our kind of tech stack to run the agency is incredibly efficient and lightweight because it just makes everyone's life easier. It prevents mistakes. But then we've also started using AI on client projects as well. So, for example, we do kind of like marketing work or we do kind of big website migrations. So let's say we've got the context of migrating a website. There's 1,000 pages from website one to website two,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got a different URL structure. What you'd usually have is a website migration specialist figure out the sitemap from site one, sitemap from site two, and spend days and days and days
Mm-hmm.
comparing and like writing out that
Mm-hmm.
redirect map. A few months back, I wrote an AI tool which will do an automated comparison, and the AI will scan website one, it will scan the new website we just built,
Mm-hmm.
and it will just create that whole map for me within the space of 5 minutes. So I cut a 1 to 2 week job down to 5 to 10 minutes. There is a bit of kind of tweaking to make sure it's
That's it, yeah.
like correct and checking it, but it's made things way more efficient.
So you've embraced AI.
Yeah.
When you're talking to these businesses, who, there's a lot of greenwashing in some businesses, but there's some genuine businesses who, who are, wanting green credentials. For the ones that are wanting the genuine green credentials, what, what is the most important part of working with a digital agency like yourself?
Yeah, I think it is that value alignment because we like to work with companies with that same kind of sustainability value, the same kind of mission and vision that we've got. And for a company with those same values, when they're kind of procuring for a new agency, they're going to be looking for the same thing, not just from the company, but from the people inside as well. And one thing we're very kind of proud about is our culture internally as a team is like driven off like sustainability as well. So we all have that consideration. Like different team members have different kind of like values. For example, our developer is super sustainable, like vegan, cycles everywhere, never gets planes. So he's probably like the most sustainable of us all. But then we have other people that they are sustainable, but not to kind of that level. And we're all very honest about how we are as individuals as well. And I think that's the most important thing is as long as the individuals that are working together have those same values, you're going to
Yeah,
get a good outcome because people buy off people.
of course.
Even though the agency is a brand,
Mm-hmm.
we are just people. And you've got to like kind of be able to work together, don't you?
You do. So you've got some great things going on. Your team's coming together. You're embracing AI. What do you see as the biggest challenges for both your business and for the digital agency world? What is the actual thing that comes to your mind most often?
For the agency world, I'd say AI is actually probably quite a big threat, as well as there's a lot of positives that come off the back of it.
Hmm.
For example, there's a platform called Lovable, which is a AI application kind of builder. So you can just talk to this AI and it will build out full scale applications for you
Hmm.
um, in a couple of hours or like even a week. Whereas if we did that custom, it might take us 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So it is kind of showcasing to a client the value we can provide, even though we're going to cost a lot more, we're going to take a lot longer. The value that we can provide is everything's custom, it's bespoke, and meets their exact requirements. Whereas if that client is using Livable, you don't know what that AI code is generating. It might create something a bit dodgy. It might have like a security flaw in it. Um, and that's a kind of conversation a lot of agencies are having right now is how do we kind of showcase the value that we could provide against these AI tools.
Hmm.
Um, as an agency as ourselves, like the biggest challenge is probably kind of yes, scaling. Um, because my background and Sam's background is we don't have any other experience in agencies. We went straight from university to starting a company. So we have this kind of unique experience where we've just learned everything ourselves.
Yeah.
We've not really had inspiration of working in an agency for 5 years, understanding the processes.
Hmm.
We've built it all ourselves in what we think is right, as well as kind of reaching out to other agency owners to get that help. Um, so neither of us have never ever worked in an agency of more than like 5 people, apart from like internships.
Hmm.
So us trying to scale past 5 people is a very big unknown. We don't really know how it works, but it's all part of the learning experience because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to kind of slip up somewhere, but we're just going to reflect on it, learn it, and then keep on going. So that's the biggest challenge we've got right now is figuring out how we kind of execute that with the least amount of mistakes as possible.
Well, Matt, you're not on your own there. There's bigger businesses than you
Yeah,
still trying to work it out.
yeah,
You
that's
look at
true.
some big ages, think, really? You know,
Mm.
I spoke earlier to you about inspiration, anybody that guided you in your life, and you said actually, you find a lot of internal motivation. You're not a book reader, so answer this question. So, when things are difficult as they are sometimes, how do you find that inner strength to keep going?
Um, I used to struggle with it a few years ago. Like I'd get overwhelmed, I'd kind of get worked up and just allow that stress to boil over. But over the past 2 years, I've really focused on kind of like mindfulness, fitness to kind of help regulate and motivate myself. So I'm always running, I like sign up to endurance races
Well,
because my kind of like mindset is like if I can overcome these like physical barriers. So, for example, I did a half Ironman about 3 months ago, and
mhm.
that's probably like one of the most physically intense things I've ever done in my life. Like training for half a year, and I'm like, okay, I've achieved this like massive physical um, like problem. Like endurance racing is like you are solving problems. You're basically fighting your own mind because if you let your kind of negative thoughts win, you're just going to stop the race and give up. So you're constantly kind of trying to override, like, okay, I'm going to stay in this mindset. And that translates to running a business as well. Like when things get tough, you've got to keep that narrative as positive. There is like light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, okay, this is the target. How do I make sure I achieve that? And that's something I've always done, like for a couple of years now. And it just keeps me like really motivated, really focused by taking that mindset of like endurance sports to running a business.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I hope it continues. I see high rocks everywhere. Are you joining that gang?
I've been looking into it.
Hmm.
But yeah, a lot of my endurance stuff I do like I kind of see it as a meditation. So I
Yeah.
always run alone. I train alone because I can like really just get in myself and think. When I'm doing like a big 2 hour run, I'm just like kind of doing some sort of self therapy by thinking my way through it.
So you're working hard. You've got your mindset sorted. Where does your future lie, both for yourself and the business, and personally?
Um, it's a good question. For the business, we want to try and get up to about 15, 20 people in the next, I'd say, like 5 years, because
Mm.
that would take us to kind of this like boutique agency size. We can kind of run with a lot of projects, but deliver to a very high quality while keeping the team quite close. Because the conversations I've had, when you start getting past that kind of 20-person mark, you kind of lose some of that personal connection people have, because you get like different silos, different pods, and we kind of want
Yeah.
to avoid that. So we prefer to say quite small but command high rates. And then personally, I've just got a few things going on. I've recently just bought a house, so I'm renovating that. So I want to do
Wow.
that up, and then hopefully do quite a bit more like kind of working remotely. Like a few years ago, I was working from like Portugal, worked from Spain, worked from like Cornwall surfing, and like when you're working in new environments, you get like really good and new ideas. But since buying a house, not being able to do that as much, because like that's where all my money went. But hopefully, once I've kind of got that back up and the agency's scaling, I can do a lot more like remote working, figure out kind of like what's next, what am I going to plan to do, and figure out like what is the kind of end goal for the agency and stuff like that. 'Cause that's something we're still figuring out with.
Amazing. That's been really interesting. I love the fact that you found your niche, and so many more businesses really do need to find their niche. So thank you for joining me today. And yeah, you're an inspiration to, maybe you're the inspiration for many agencies who could be brave enough to step onto that niche and find out what they're all about.
Yeah, potentially. Thanks for having me, Paul.
No worries at all. Thank you very much, Matt.